Xavier Worthy is actually generational. The term generational gets thrown around way too often. Every year there's somebody that's generational, but he actually has generational speed. We saw that in the 40-yard dash time. But has that translated to the NFL? What are his strengths and weaknesses? How is he being used? And what do we see from him on film? Watch till the end, and you'll have a good idea as to how to assess his rookie season. Xavier Worthy is incredibly fast, but he's also quite small by NFL standards. So he measured in at 5'11, 165 at the combine. And so that's somebody that's incredibly small. He was, though, traded up for in the first round of the NFL draft by the Chiefs. And boy, you couldn't have drawn up a better landing spot. And at this point in time, he's still only 21 years and 7 months old. So for the majority of the season, he was fresh at 21 years old. Looking at his athleticism, it's remarkable. So obviously his 40-yard dash speed of 4.21 is 100th percentile. Nobody's ever done that before. And so that's where he actually is generational. Looking at his speed score, that's height and weight adjusted. Despite being 5'11 and 165, which really hurts his score, he's still 77th percentile. That's incredible. Looking at his burst score, it's also 96th percentile. That's his vertical and broad jump. He didn't do the agility drills. I don't think that would have helped him out very much. He isn't a purely linear athlete, but once he gets going, he's a lot more linear. At the beginning, when he's not running full speed, he absolutely is a little bit more wiggly, but once he does get going, it's more linear. And that does give him a 91st percentile catch radius as well. And so what we have here is somebody that has ridiculous speed and burst, a good catch radius as well, but he is a little bit smaller. And so I took a look at weeks 1 through 18 and wide receivers with 75 plus targets. That was a total of 52. In this time span, Worthy ran 516 routes, which is 94.2% of the team routes. And so we do like the usage there. In terms of how he's deployed, he plays 35.8% of his snaps from the slot and 62.8% out wide. And so what this indicates is he's used all over the formation, which is great. Somebody with his slight frame, you do want to avoid press coverage with him. He can get dogged out there. Just, he's not the biggest dude. But if you can get him free releases, that is how you want to use him. And I love him being utilized all over the formation. Looking at his yards per out run, his 1.24 are 47th out of 52 here, so not the best. His PFF receiving grade of 65.0 is 47th as well, so PFF hasn't been the biggest fan of him. Looking at his yak per reception, though, his 7.1 yards is tied for 4th in the sample size. And so you'll definitely see yards after catchability with him. Looking at his missed tackles forced, his 6 are tied for 34th. So, like I said, and you'll see a lot on film, he gets going really quickly. And when he gets going, he doesn't per se make people miss. But when he isn't going full speed, he is a little bit more wiggly. Looking at his contested catch percentage, his 27.3% isn't the best. Somebody with this slight frame doesn't really have the body to be able to moss people very often or contend in closed, condensed spaces. And so that's definitely a deficiency to his game. Looking at his targets per game, his 5.8 are 51st in the NFL. In the beginning of the season, he was really nothing more than a gadget player, and they were really struggling to figure out how to use him, at least in my opinion. And that really did continue until the middle of the season. But towards the latter third of the season, they started using him as a chain mover and a vertical threat from time to time as well. And it's paid dividends. In the fantasy playoffs, he scored no less than 19.6 points in a full PPR setting. And so he definitely, if he made your starting lineup, was a contributor towards your success. Looking at his receptions per game, his 3.7 or 41st, not the best. His yards per game of 37.5 or 60th. And his 6 receiving touchdowns are tied for 35th, but he does have 3 rushing touchdowns. And so 9 total touchdowns on the season as a rookie is really good. Now, when we look at his route win rate overall versus man and zone, his 41.8% is 72nd in the NFL. And so he hasn't been consistent in winning his routes, but when he wins by a large margin in terms of his target separation. And you can see that with his 2.06 yards of target separation, which are 9th in the NFL. And so when we further break down his ability to beat man and zone, his PFF grade versus man of 66.0 is 68th in the NFL. His yards per out run versus man coverage of 1.38 or 70th. His PFF grade versus zone coverage of 66.8 is 59th. And his yards per out run versus zone of 1.35 are 66th. And so I do agree that he is a bit inconsistent. When he wins in a massive way, but he is a little bit inconsistent and he can definitely get thrown around out there due to his weight. And looking at his PFF grade on screens, his 90.1 grade is 12th in the entire NFL. That is accurate. You will see multiple times on film of him perfectly following his blocks to the end zone. If he even needs them sometimes, his speed is just ridiculous. But that is an accurate grade there, in my opinion. Looking at his PFF grade in the slot, his 66.1 grade is 70th, so really not much better than his man and zone PFF scores. And looking at his first downs caught is 18 or 47th in the NFL. And so PFF really doesn't seem to think that he's performing very well. I do agree that he's very inconsistent and he can definitely get bullied around due to his weight, but when he wins in a massive way. Looking at his target accuracy, his 6.4 is 45th. You will see so many times on film where Pat Mahomes misses him for a touchdown deep down the field. He had 9 total touchdowns this year, but he could have had so many more if he was not missed deep down the field. Looking at his yards after catch, his 407 total yards are 14th, which is awesome. His yards per target of 6.5 is 94th. It was a little bit deeper at the beginning of the season, but he started to become the chain mover and he's received a larger target share as of recently. And so that number's gone down. Looking at his yards per team pass attempt, his 1.06 are 69th in the NFL. His target quality rating of 5.00 is 52nd. And his catchable target rate of 71.4% is 44th in the NFL. And so he definitely hasn't been receiving the most accurate passes by any stretch of the imagination. You'll see that on film for sure, especially vertically down the field. But there are a couple times when he runs quick outs, for instance, that the ball placement is just atrocious. So I do agree with those percentages for sure, and it's backed up by the film. And so looking at his target share, his 17.2% is 55th in the NFL. And so one thing I always say is elite players earn targets at an elite rate. And so I definitely think that he isn't an elite player really yet at all. He does have quite a few deficiencies in his game. I do think he's growing for sure. And when he uses them correctly, he can give you massive results. But I don't think he's the best player for high target volume in general. I do think that should have been Rashee Rice. Obviously, he was injured by Patrick Mahomes, funnily enough, although it's not really funny, obviously. And so that has led to him receiving an increased target share. But overall, he's not really the guy that you want to feed 10 plus targets to every game. That's going to be somebody more like Rashee Rice. And so he really isn't a dominant wide receiver 1 by any stretch of the imagination. His target share doesn't suggest it. His PFF grade and yards per out run versus man and zone don't suggest it. But he definitely has his strengths, especially when the ball's in his hands, as indicated by his PFF grade on screens. But is what we've seen here backed up by the film? Let's take a look. Taking a look at week 1, we have Xavier Worthy in the slot right here in a bunch. He is going to be running a deep cross right here. You're going to get straight cover 1 man from the Ravens, and so our Darius Washington is going to be one-on-one in man coverage against Worthy. You're going to have your deep midfield safety here, your robber underneath, and once again, man coverage on the other side. And so this play is both a positive and a negative. And so it's not per se anything that Worthy does that's a negative. It's just going to display some of the limitations of his game. So obviously being 5'11", around 165, give or take, you're just not going to be the dominant jump ball type of wide receiver, generally at least. And so he just really doesn't have the body type and the size necessary to sky up for this pass. But what I will say is, and you'll see this on the film here, is that he is going to do everything in his power to make sure that this pass isn't intercepted. And so, like I said, there are definitely positives and negatives to him. Looking at this, though, you'll see that right here, Mahomes is going to throw it a little bit high. And so, once again, he's not the tallest receiver, and he's not the biggest body to be able to bully people in the red zone. But what he's going to do is at least bat this away so that there's no way it's intercepted. And so, there's really nothing he can do about his size per se. But to his credit, he did everything here that he could to at least bat the ball away so that this isn't an interception. And same game here, we have Xavier Worthy right here. And so, obviously, if you try to press him and you miss, he could absolutely beat you deep. But being, about 165 pounds, if you can avoid press coverage situations so that he can get a free release, that's a fantastic idea and helps him build up speed straight off the line of scrimmage. And so they're going to do just that here, stacking him behind Rashee Rice. What he's going to do is run a crosser over the middle. The Ravens are going to be in a cloud cover 3, where you have your 3 deep third defenders with your underneath coverage. Except what this side is going to do is match, and so you have Stevens against Rice, and you have Marlon Humphrey, who's going to match against Xavier Worthy. And so he is going to absolutely roast Marlon Humphrey here. Unfortunately, Patrick Mahomes isn't able to get set and hit him with the pass here, but this potentially could have been a touchdown. And so you'll see, look at this separation here. This is just pure speed. And so Mahomes, it's unfortunate he couldn't hit him because there is a good chance if he sees this in open field that he's gone. And so, yeah, Mahomes is going to end up getting sacked. But like I said, get him a free release. Man coverage, if you can't get your hands on him, is really difficult. And if you can get him running vertically in a straight line, he is going to separate a good majority of the time. And obviously, it's a good idea to get him involved with handoffs too, because if you can get him running in a straight line, kind of like Jameson Williams, it's a really good idea. He's very good at reading blocks too and following them. And so take a look at this end around. And he's essentially untouched. I believe he was barely touched twice. And so if you can get him in open space, or if you can get him following his blockers, he is incredibly dangerous in space. Moving on to week 2, this is going to be a bit of a recurring theme. On this route, Xavier Worthy just isn't going to be the biggest guy, and so he is going to get bullied to the ground. Now, in my opinion, I do think the cornerback, after 5 yards, did get his hands on him, and a penalty should have been called. But regardless, some wide receivers would have just shrugged this off and made the catch. So what he's going to do is he's going to run a little fade stop right here. The Bengals are going to be in quarters coverage or cover 4, and so you have your 4 deep quarter defenders with your underneath coverage. And so on this play, like I said, potentially defensive holding at the stem of the route, but bigger receivers aren't going to have as much of an issue with this. And so you'll see right here, he is just going to fall. Like I said, definitely could argue defensive holding there, but man, it is really easy if you do get your hands on him to take him out of the play. Now, a good idea is to get him in motion and to give him a screen. He is really good at creating space, especially following his blocks. And so what they're going to do is motion him right here. And now you might have noticed that this guy followed across the formation. So that generally is going to be a tell that it's going to be man coverage. It's actually not going to be in this case. But what we're going to get here is a screen. And so these 2 receivers are going to try to block the players in front of them, and he's going to hit the bubble right here. As far as the Bengals are concerned, this is going to be a cover 3. But so like I was saying, he is really good at maximizing yards after the catch. And so you'll see right here, he assesses where they are, slips past Kelsey, gets a good block from Rice on the outside, and there really wasn't much more for him to get here. But once again, maximizing yards after catch, that is one of his strengths. And that does support the PFF grade on screens. Like I say from time to time, I don't necessarily agree all the time with what PFF says, but that is one thing that I absolutely agree with. And here against the Falcons, we have another strength of Worthy. Once he can get in the open field, he can roast people deep. So what he's going to do is take an inside release, and he's going to run a post. As far as the Falcons are concerned, I believe that they were supposed to be in a quarters coverage here, but they're going to play it more like a very poorly run cover 3. And so you'll have I think you should have had your 4 deep quarter defenders here. The reason I'm a little bit confused is because he plays up here in a little bit of a robber zone, but Jesse Bates here plays as if he's in quarters, which, the cornerback's going to have outside leverage here, and with no deep safety in this quarter or really in the middle per se, that leaves a wide open space for Worthy. The reason this isn't going to be complete is because Pat Mahomes throws with absolutely zero anticipation and leads him with a really flat pass that he's very fortunate isn't intercepted, and really credit to Worthy that it isn't. And so you'll see right off the line, he gets a free release, has the outside leverage of the corner with his inside leverage. That's exactly what he wants, considering there's nobody in this deep quarter of the field. And so you'll see right here, Mahomes needs to throw this pass now for him to really be able to catch this ball and score a touchdown. But you'll see Mahomes is still waiting, and now he's getting ready to chuck this. Well, now Jesse Bates is back in the play. If he had thrown with a little bit of anticipation, this area was wide open. And so as you can see, the pass is going to be really flat, and Worthy gets in there to break it up, luckily. And so usually Patrick Mahomes isn't somebody that you have to worry about in terms of throwing with anticipation, but this was an example of points being left on the board, and there's really nothing that Worthy could do here, and props to him for being able to break this pass up. And here against the Chargers, we have an example of Xavier Worthy winning deep once again, and Patrick Mahomes hitting him perfectly. So he is going to run a 9. The Chargers are going to attempt to run quarters coverage here, but they run it very poorly. And so in quarters, you'll have your 4 deep quarter defenders with your underneath coverage here. And so Worthy is going to split these 2 defenders, and this safety does not get anywhere close to enough depth. And this corner is also just not going to be fast enough and is going to have outside leverage, which is going to work against him here. And so Moore will go in motion. And so you'll see right here, he tried the cornerback, but he's just not fast enough. But look at the safety. He is going to flip his hips right here with a Worthy running full speed. That is an absolute disaster. And he played that quite poorly. And so, despite pass interference being committed here, you can see he's being tackled before the ball gets there. He's going to snag this. And you can see the laundry right here as well. And so on this play, obviously you get to see the deep speed. Obviously we know that's there. But you also get to see him catching something that's contested while being interfered with. And that is just good to see because sometimes he does get bullied. And if you play your defensive coverage like this, you are going to get roasted most of the time, and he will definitely score a lot of touchdowns on you. And right here against the Saints, Worthy's going to start out in the slot. So what we're going to get here is Juju Smith-Schuster on a return motion where he heads to this side of the field, and then as the snap is hiked, he's heading back this way. You're also going to get a play action here while Worthy slips out to the flat. The Saints are going to be in a cover 3, and so you'll have your 3 deep third defenders with your underneath coverage. Most of the defense is going to get sucked up by the return motion and the play action, and so Worthy is going to have a lot of free space, and the guy who attempts to tackle him is going to take a terrible angle. And so you get another good example of you need to have the perfect angle, and you can't have any lapses in defensive coverage, or this is going to happen to you every time. And so you'll see that Mahomes is going to flip this over the head of the defender. And now, look at the angle right here. He has way too much speed for that. And so that's just not going to work. And then he maximizes yards after catch. And so this wasn't a screen, but essentially, if you can get him going horizontally in a straight line, he has a ton of build-up speed, and he reaches it rather quickly. And once again, if you take a poor angle, it's a wrap. If you like what you're hearing and seeing so far, feel free to like and subscribe. It's a free and easy way to support the channel, and I'd really appreciate it. And make sure you check out my other videos on rookie wide receivers that I've made recently. I've made videos on Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Lad McConkey, Xavier Leggett, and the like. And I'm going to continue making videos on the rookie wide receivers, as well as some of the rookie running backs and all of the rookie quarterbacks, with the exception of JJ McCarthy. So if you want to see more content like this, just like and subscribe. Thanks. And so here against the Saints, we have another example of utilizing Worthy in the run game. And so 42 Carson Steele lined up in the backfield is going to lead block. And what you're going to get here is Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy running a read option. And so Kelsey's going to hand the ball off to Worthy, and he's going to follow his blockers. And it's just another good example of creative play calling and getting Worthy in space. Here against the 49ers, we have another example of Mahomes missing Worthy deep when he was wide open. And so once again, Worthy is going to be running a post. This is going to be freed by Watson here running a sail, and then Travis Kelce running a crosser. The 49ers are going to be in a cover 2. This cornerback is going to match though, but you're going to get a deep half safety, and then your flat right here. And so what's going to happen is this safety is going to bite for the sail route by Justin Watson, and this safety isn't going to get enough depth and isn't going to have inside leverage, which is going to result in Xavier Worthy running wide open. And this is just another example of missed plays where if they had hit, people would have such a different impression of his rookie season. There have been many times where he's been tackled inside the 3-yard line. He's been missed on bombs like this. And so that's why counting stats aren't everything. You really need context. And same game here against the 49ers. You're going to have Worthy in the slot. So what he's trying to do is run a corner. The 49ers are going to be in straight cover 1 man. And so Lenore right here is going to be one-on-one against Worthy. And then you're going to have your deep midfield safety. And so this play call in this route specifically is a good idea because the midfield safety is going to have to work extra hard to become part of this play. And if Worthy can beat his man, that's potentially a touchdown. Here's the issue. He is going to struggle mightily to get off the press coverage, but then he's also going to get held, and then there's going to be some incidental contact that leads to Worthy tripping. And so this is going to end up being an interception. And so the incidental contact where he trips, I'm not going to blame him for that. That's just going to happen from time to time, obviously. But if he was a little bit bigger and able to beat the press coverage initially, that probably doesn't happen either. And so you see right here, he is going to struggle mightily to get off this press coverage. And you could argue right here it's defensive holding for sure. Then you're going to have your incidental contact where he trips, and you get an interception. And so once again, it was, in my opinion, a defensive holding towards the latter half of that play. But at the same time, if he was able to get off of press coverage better, that probably isn't an issue either. And here against the Raiders, we have a Xavier Worthy touchdown. So what they're going to do is they're just going to set a pick for him. So you're going to have Juju Watson here just run straight forward and barrel into the defender. And you're going to get a little slot fade by Xavier Worthy. It's going to work because the Raiders are going to be in a cover 1. And so you'll have your man coverage throughout with your middle zone and your deep middle field safety. And so, once again, get Xavier Worthy in space. And if you can create separation for him, it's even better. Way too easy. Here against the Bills, Xavier Worthy is going to be lined up right here. We're going to get another example of getting him into the flats and then allowing him to use his breathtaking acceleration and top end speed to get to the end zone. And so he's going to leak out to the flat. You're going to get a play action right here. As far as the Bills are concerned, they're going to be in a cover 3. And so you have your 3 deep thirds with your underneath coverage. And they are going to ask Dorian Williams here, an outside linebacker, to try to contend with Worthy on this play. You could probably imagine how that goes. And so you just look at this acceleration. Zoom. This man is an absolute Ferrari. On this play, Xavier Worthy is going to be open vertically once again. He is running a deep over. You are going to get cover 3 and a blitz from the Raiders. And so you have your 3 deep third defenders. This safety is not going to get nearly deep enough, and so he's not really even going to be in the play. And it's basically going to be this cornerback with outside leverage against Worthy in a straight line. And as you can probably imagine, that's not going to work out too well for him. Now, this play is going to be rushed, and so Mahomes isn't going to be able to get his feet set, so I'm not really going to blame him too much for missing this throw. He has to throw rather quickly with pressure. But this just goes to show that there were so many plays left on the field, so many yards. He could have had such a better season. And so you'll see right off the line, he bursts, and he is going to get a ton of separation. But unfortunately, if you see Mahomes, the second he is done with that play action fake, there is an edge rusher running straight for him. And so he has to try to hurry this pass. But as you can see, Worthy has a ton of separation here. And that would have been what? About a 45-yard touchdown. And so you hate to see it, but from Worthy's perspective, he got wide open. Looking at this play against the Browns, it's going to be a negative and a positive. So you're going to get a little speed out by Worthy, and you're going to get a fade by this outside receiver. The Browns are going to be in cover 3, and so you'll have your 3 deep third defenders with your underneath coverage. And so he is going to be wide open. Mahomes, however, is going to be forced off of his spot. So what Worthy's going to do after being open is he's going to try to work vertically downfield. That's not going to happen, so he does what good receivers do and works back towards his quarterback, towards the sideline. The only issue is he's going to drop this. And now, I haven't seen a ton of drops on his film, so it's not a ridiculous issue per se. But he does end up dropping a pass that does hit him right in the hands. And so, everything else I liked about it. He was open, then he worked vertically in scramble drill. When that wasn't going to work, he went back to Mahomes to present himself an open target. It's just, unfortunately, he dropped it. And of course, I like to end things on positive notes for these videos. So what we're going to have here is a creative Xavier Worthy touchdown. What we're going to get here from the Chiefs is a levels concept to draw the defense towards the middle of the field. So what you're going to get is a shallow cross by Kelsey with a dig by Noah Gray. And then you're going to get a wheel out of the backfield from Xavier Worthy. And so the Chiefs ran up to the line of scrimmage and hiked immediately to catch the Steelers off guard, and boy, did it work. What the Steelers are going to try to do is run a cover 3, and so you have your 3 deep third defenders with your underneath coverage here. Now, this concept is going to draw the defense towards the middle of the field, and so Minkah Fitzpatrick here, it's going to be his responsibility to contend with Xavier Worthy. He's going to be late, and if we've learned anything so far in the Xavier Worthy film breakdown, if you are a second late or if you don't have an angle, it's a wrap. And so, as you saw, it was quite the easy touchdown. And so when we think of Xavier Worthy, he definitely has a slight frame at 5'11", 165. Like I said earlier, I suspect his playing weight is more in the 170 range, but that's still really slight. But he does have generational speed, and he actually is generational. His 4.21 dash score broke the record, which, despite being 5'11", 165, gave him a 77th percentile speed score, which is ludicrous given his size. But he also had a 96th percentile burst score. And so we see that on film, he gains ridiculous separation deep. And when he's used in the flats and in the short area of the field in open space, he accelerates incredibly quickly and just eviscerates angles. But we did see on times, especially when he was pressed, that he was able to get bullied, especially at the catch point. And so he does have his limitations, but he went to the perfect spot. First of all, he has Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. That doesn't hurt at all, even though they did seem to struggle, especially early on in the year with their connection deep down the field. But he also has Andy Reid as his play caller. And if there is one man in the NFL that knows how to maximize and utilize his players correctly, it is Andy Reid. And so we saw that he was used vertically down the field, but he's also been converted into a bit of a chain mover. And we saw that they were giving him open looks in space in the flats and deep down the field where he's able to gain vertical separation. And so while he's definitely been inconsistent and he can get bullied around due to his slight frame, which in my opinion does prevent him from being a real wide receiver one, he absolutely has the ability to be a massive game changer. And he is just one touch from anywhere on the field from housing it. And so, in my opinion, he's going to develop into quite the good wide receiver two. I think that Rashee Rice is going to be their wide receiver one. I do think he's better suited for a larger target share due to his size and his ability to play in the big slot role, which he's really replacing Travis Kelce. But Xavier Worthy is a fantastic fit for the Chiefs, and I think there is massive upside in the future. And I really think that people aren't giving him enough credit for what he did as a rookie. You saw in film, there were several plays that weren't completed deep down the field that, if they had been completed, his stat line would look much better. But what do you think? Do you agree with my assessment? Do you think I missed something? Let me know below in the comment section and let me know why. With that being said, if you like what you've seen and heard, feel free to like and subscribe. And make sure you check out my other prospect videos where I took a look at Marvin Harrison Jr., Brian Thomas, Malik Neighbors, Xavier Legette, and the like, and continue watching them as they come out. Thanks.